On va commencer parce qu'on a beaucoup de connexions, du coup, une grande partie des membres qui se sont enregistrés sont arrivés. Alors bonjour à tous et bienvenue sur ce webinaire dédié aux enjeux du marketing d'influence. Alors je suis Didier Fredenucci, je suis en charge du marché français pour Facelift, qui est la plateforme de social media management leader en Europe. Et pour animer ce webinaire sur l'influencer marketing, je suis accompagné par Francis Trapp, fondateur et CEO de Brandnew.io, expert du marketing d'influence, qui va nous livrer aujourd'hui des insights sur les principaux challenges et les enjeux d'une stratégie d'influence réussie, mais aussi les résultats de la plus grande étude réalisée à date auprès d'influenceurs à travers le monde. Alors surtout, à tout moment, n'hésitez pas à intervenir pour nous poser des questions pendant la session. On va s'efforcer d'y répondre essentiellement en fin de webinaire sur le temps qui va être prévu à cet effet. On est ensemble pour les prochaines 42 minutes. Et pour la suite, we will switch to English so that we can have Francis telling us more about influencer marketing.
Super, merci Didier. Bonjour. Je m'appelle Francis, but I think that's all I can say now. I forgot most of my French skills that I learned in schools for so many years. But yeah, let's get started. We're very happy to be here together with Facelift in Paris. Didier and myself, we're sitting here in Paris together right now. I'll tell you a bit about Brandnew and especially influencer marketing, because we're seeing it's very, very relevant all over Europe and also, of course, now in France. And we are very happy to be partnering in this case here with Facelift. So the relationship between Brandnew and Facelift is that we've been working together for the last 2 years, mainly in Germany, because we're both German-founded companies and so on. But as we're all working quite internationally, we are now partnering with Facelift France as well. So that's why we're bringing you the session with Didier and his team here together. For today, this is the agenda. We will be talking about ideally lots of things that are interesting for you around influencer marketing, and especially takeaways for you how to do proper influencer marketing. Where's the industry heading and how to do it properly. At the end of the session, you'll have the chance to ask tons of questions as well. So you can really pose all the questions you have, etc. And we'll make sure that every single one of you gets an answer to your questions. And the agenda for now, so we'll give a very, very quick and short introduction to who Brandnew is, so that you have an understanding. Then it's about how to do proper influencer marketing, and we'll share some of the key lessons learned that we acquired when we were spending 2 million euros on influencers in the past. And also very specific is how actually do collaborations with influencers look like. And lastly, we'll also share very new insights about one of the largest influencer studies. So we are producing a series of data and insight studies right now. The first one got launched in November last year, and we are just about to present the second one. So let's get into it. Our idea at Brandnew is that we want to enable human relationships through technology. So your brand is very precious, and we help you to build and develop your relationships with influencers. Brandnew is a company that has technology and software at its core. That's the core part of our company, and we use that to help you develop human relationships with influencers and also with your clients. At the bottom of this page, you can see some of the very, very great brands that we work with, and those are some of our clients that we have. There's actually just a fraction there. There are tons of more, but what you can see is we really work with the big known global brands in the space. Probably there are some of you also here on this call now. Those are the brands and types of clients that really do influencer marketing or are getting into influencer marketing and so on. In order to work on our vision, this is what we aim for right now. So we want to be the #1 influencer marketing platform in the world. What this means in detail is that It's about meaningful long-term relationships with influencers. So you and your brand, you should be building relationships for long term with influencers. Not just, hey, I want to spend some money, I want to work with an influencer for 2 weeks and then next month I'll take someone else. It's really about working long term with them. That has proven to be the best method. Secondly, what we do is about providing access to a pool of influencers. And here it is important that it's a large pool of influencers. On our platform, you get access to 115,000 influencers from various countries. And France is one of the key markets on this network as well. But it's not only about the size of the platform and network, but it's also about the quality of influencers. So you don't want to have fake followers, you don't want to have fake profiles, and you want to have real people that you can actually work with. And that leads to the third point. So it's not only about the size of the influencer network, but it's also about, are you actually able to work with these people? Are you able to collaborate with them? Are you able to get in touch with them? It doesn't help you when you have an email address like Kim Kardashian at info.com, because you will never get a response there. But on our platform, you have the best in class response rate. So on average, you have a 50 to 60% response rates from influencers when you reach out to them. So you send 10 emails to people, to influencers through our platform, and 5 to 6 will be getting back to you, which is extremely high and unheard of in the industry. When you do work with influencers, of course, you want to track what you're doing. You want to have the reporting. And lastly, that's point number 5, when you have all this technology at hand and so on, there's still a human expert support in the Brandnew teams, and also now starting with Facelift, that you can always speak to a human being when you have questions, when there is something you wanna know. Brief company background. Me, Francis Trapp, I founded Brandnew about 5 years ago in Berlin. So it's a German-founded company. But by now we do 70 to 80% of our business outside of Germany, because the other markets have proven to be developing a lot faster than the German market in influencer marketing. And that's why we're doing lots of our business, the majority of our business now outside of Germany. That's mainly across Europe. That's the UK and Switzerland and Netherlands, also France and so on. And at the same time, we're doing a big share of our business as well in the US, which is, I always think, the Champions League in influencer marketing right now in the Western world. So that's where we're doing most of our business across Europe and the US. Just to mention a few things here, because of our very high quality product and software, and also our expertise in the team, in the past we've ran more than 2,000 collaborations with influencers across industries, across markets, also in China and other Asian countries and so on. Because of these two facts, expertise and software, we are the dedicated exclusive influencer experts to Universal Music Group. So through Brandnew, you will get access also to lots of Universal Music artists. And we are also exclusive experts for Mediacom and Calvin Klein. We also have extremely close relationships with our social networks, Instagram, Facebook, and Google, which is key because we're not doing some dodgy development and we try to scrape data. We really have the direct official access to Instagram, Facebook, and Google, which allows us to use their official APIs, official data, and that's best for data quality. So Brandnew is doing two things. We offer you all the technology and software to do your influencer marketing from A to Z, so really from beginning to end. On the right-hand side of the slide, you can see some of the things that our platforms offer. But on the other hand, so you have access to all the software. On the other hand, when you need support, we also have a services arm. We can do everything for you. So you can either use our software and do it fully yourself when you're experienced and when you have your team and the resources and people in-house. But you can also use our services and we do everything for you. It's your choice. But why influencer marketing? What's so special about it? Platforms that once made people to celebrities have been replaced. So now you have platforms like YouTube, Snapchat, Instagram, and Musical.ly. When I see my 12-year-old cousin, she's always on Musical.ly performing when we have family events and birthdays. And I was wondering, what the heck is she doing? But she has lots of followers, and it's really popular among younger audiences as well. The classical celebrity model is nothing like it was. Everything has changed and is different now in the celebrity world. Also, the rules have changed completely. Here are some of the influencers, the new up-and-coming stars that are there, that are talking about your brand, about Dior, about Chanel, and lots of people are looking at this. The picture on the lower left with Chanel in the background, 44,000 people hit like, lots of comments and so on. That's what's going on right now. And there's even more. And it's this new generation of stars that keeps everyone busy. They're on the news all the time. But there's a problem. Everyone wants to take part, but actually only a very few understand the topic and how to do it properly. What we can see in the industry and what we hear when speaking to many of our clients and companies all over Europe and the US is that when brands and marketers think about influencer marketing, one of the very first things that come up and say, it's really tricky, is identifying relevant influencers. Who are the influencers that match to my brand, to my image, to my positioning, and how to identify them? Or when you have already started working with influencers and you have made first steps, or you have some experience, you have maybe a group of influencers that you work with regular, which is maybe 50 people, then you say, I want to scale it. But it's actually very, very tricky to scale it just having interns or marketing people going through Instagram and YouTube and identifying new people and somewhat tweeting to them or sending them an Instagram comment or message to get their attention. So there, finding the right people is tricky. Once you have solved that, the next problem is, how do you get their attention? I'm getting asked quite often by clients like, hey, when you have people on your network, isn't it tricky that then these people get approached by other brands on Brandnew on the platform and so on? I say, well, actually, the world nowadays, how it works in influencer marketing is that a popular influencer gets approached by brands all the time. They get a dozen emails per day from various brands and product and so on, and they get approached all the time. So you have to get through the noise and you have to get their attention. And that's why the 50 to 60% response rate on Brandnew's platform is really, really good. And lastly, once you've figured that all out, then you have the problem about, hey, how to actually measure the results and how do I see what is my return on investment? Is it actually working? And Facelift and Brandnew, we're here to help you with all these challenges. Next, I'll hand over to my colleague Jonas. Jonas is my very, very valued colleague who lives in London. He's with us for a couple of years now. He started very early on, and he's going to give you some insights about what is really a good collaboration with influencers. And he's going to give you a couple of examples, of real-life examples, where we have worked with some of the coolest and best brands in the world. So I hand over to you, Jonas. I hope you can hear me and you're there.
Thank you, Francis. Yes, I can hear you. Good morning, everybody. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through a few examples of clients that we worked with on a UK level, but also on a global level. The first brand I'm going to talk about is a clothing brand, so Misguided. So if you want to hit the next slide. So we've worked with Misguided for quite some time. Fashion was one of the verticals that was, they were very early adopters of influencer marketing. So we saw a lot of our early clients came from this segment. When we started working with Misguided, what they were looking for was a way to scale their influencer marketing efforts. And they wanted to integrate it with different teams across the organization and also have more of a unified process and a workflow, so they could grow their influence marketing efforts within the organization. The approach we took was that we provided them with a centralized system. So team members from different parts of the world and different cities could work under one unified solution. This meant that they could manage, all the influencer communication. They could share relationships that they have built. They could track everything that was happening, and they could present results from the different campaigns that they launched across the organization. So it kind of ensured that they could have a very, very united approach. It could make sure that the UK knew what France was doing, that France knew what Germany was doing, and that they could share everything across the organization. More specifically, what they did was, and some of the result was that they were able to recruit a brand army of new influencers. They scaled up their programs and had, ongoing, always-on campaigns. They had data and the reporting continually feed into new campaigns, and they could be very, very consistent with the KPIs to the reporting dashboard. And I think last thing, the people using the platform found a very good way of presenting results to more senior members of the team and to the executive level through our dashboard and reporting capabilities. The next client is Marriott. So if we switch the slide. So for Marriott, they had a similar challenge. They needed to scale and replicate success from other markets. So they had been very, very successful in a few markets, but they had other markets where they hadn't done much, and where they needed to find ways to replicate the programs that have been successful, mainly from the US. They had already an established group of brand ambassadors. They had a lot of content, but now they needed to replicate that. They needed to find new influencers. They needed to find new ways to do that in emerging markets and other markets. So what they did was that they used a lot of audience data. So we would provide them with audience data to look at different demographic information, such as age, location, income, age, brand affinities, and so on. So they could really track the following of particular influencers to identify new influencers based on lookalike audiences and based on what had been successful in previous markets. And in that way, they could scale up their influencer network and relationship across 21 different markets and replicate a lot of the success that they've had early on. So yeah, the results, they have made a lot of new relationships. They also have an approach that they run always on campaigns. And they increased their campaign reach to 70 million impressions per month in very, very early on. So it's two interesting cases that we kind of worked with in the past that I just wanted to highlight. I'll leave it back to you, Francis.
Thank you, Jonas, and thanks for highlighting some of the work that we have done with clients, or that clients have done on our platform. Also, I think, yeah, very interesting examples that can also be applied to some of the French brands. So I'm thinking about, I don't know, Accor Hotels, for example, or some of the Didier's is saying Promote, for example, fashion brands and so on. Actually, looking at these things, I can see that the most common industries that we work with on Brandnew and on influencer marketing in general are, of course, fashion and cosmetics. But besides that, also fast-moving consumer goods, food and beverages, the sporting industry, travel industry, tourism industry, consumer electronics. These are the very, very typical industries that we work with on a regular basis. The next slide is something that is really important to highlight here, because what we experience is that Brands that want to start working with influencers are, of course, very, very careful about their brand, and they want to protect their brand. It's all about brand safety, and is the influencer work and audience on brand and these kind of things. And it is important to mention that actually the influencers, they know their audience best. The influencer have built for the past couple of years their audience. And here on Brandnew, we are usually talking about influencers that have between 100,000 followers per person up to 2-3 million followers. That's the typical influence on our platform. So it's not micro influencers, and it's not the top celebrities from Hollywood and so on, but it's people in that range. So 100,000 to 1 to 3 million followers. That's usually the range where we work with people. And those people have built these followings over a long period of time by testing, by trying, by building their own reputation, by building their look and feel and content. And they know exactly what works best with their audiences and how to engage their followers. So I'm saying that because I'm giving the advice that you as a brand should try to give influencers somewhat the creative freedom they need. Don't be so strict as to exactly define what should be the text caption or the copy that people should put under an Instagram picture. That doesn't work. They have to use their tone of voice. But of course, you need to define certain boundaries, and you need to define certain do's and don'ts to protect your brand. And that's very common, but give the influencer the creative freedom because they know what works best. Next, I'm going to give you some collaboration examples and how to engage with influencers. All these pictures that you're seeing here now are all real life examples of collaborations and campaigns that we facilitated or that we ran with influencers and brands and so on. So the lower left picture, for example, that's from Le Tourisme de Suisse. So the Swiss tourism board. Okay. And they wanted to highlight the work that or the good quality food that they have in Switzerland, etc. But to be frank, actually, I do love the French cuisine.
Yeah, it looks like pretty French. It could be.
And the upper left, for example, that is the client Adobe from the US. There we did a big campaign with creative people about the launch of the new Adobe Creative Cloud. So. And all these pictures that you can see here with this bubble in the middle, it's about photo contests. So we had influencers producing content, and then they were asking their followers and their community to jump into the photo contest and also produce user-generated content. Usually these campaigns generated hundreds to thousands user-generated content pieces for the brand. And what you can also see in all of these influencer pictures now is that the quality of the picture is extremely good. So it's nothing crappy, blurry whatsoever. It's really very, very high quality photography and video. And that's something that very often brands are not really expecting. And what you can see here, these pictures, they actually compete with professional photographer quality content. And the good advantage about influencer marketing, something that is maybe not so obvious, is that the content that is produced in influencer marketing is something where you have the rights usually. So when you do it through Brandnew, you have the rights for these pictures. So when you have a content issue, you can use influencer content to use in your email marketing, on your social media channels, on your Facebook page, and so on and so forth. So it's actually a huge and very good, high quality and pretty cheap source for content that you can use. The right-hand side, photo contest pictures, I mean, that's obvious. It's the perfume Olympia, and I think the top right is about fashion. So photo contests are one collaboration. The next type of collaboration are product placement campaigns. I mean, that's pretty obvious. It usually works in a way that brands send the product to influencers, or the influencer chooses certain products from an online shop and they get shipped. Here, top right, one of our clients, Davidoff. Here we have worked together with the agency in Paris, Mazarine. And for them, we did this Davidoff campaign. I think it ran all over Europe. Another thing we did in the past was working with Dom Pérignon, for example. That was a huge campaign, and I think it went on for 12 months, and it was taking place on every single continent in the world. It was, to be frank, it was organizationally a bit of a nightmare, because the Dom Perignon bottles had to be shipped to all these countries, and then you had customs, so it was pretty tricky. But it was also a very, very good campaign. Lower left, green and blacks chocolate from the UK. And the two pictures with these black-haired women, those were fashion campaigns or collaborations. So those influencers, they chose the fashion items from a collection or from an online shop, and then they produced this content. So product placement is a very, very typical example of collaborating. One thing that I get asked quite often is how much does an influencer cost? And does it work that I send them my handbag, which is actually quite expensive, or that I send them a pair of shoes that cost 500 euros and I don't pay cash? The short answer is nowadays influencers want to have cash, because with the 100 handbag that they have at home, they can't pay their food and they can't pay their rent. So usually nowadays they want cash for their work, for the effort they put in, the time, putting the content together, and also for the reach they're giving you access to. But people wanting cash usually starts at a size of an account when people have starting 60,000 followers. That's usually the threshold where they start to take money. Or when you're looking at, I don't know, someone with 40,000 followers on Instagram, maybe they take 50 to 100 euros. But as soon as you get across the threshold, 50, 60,000 followers, then people start to usually charge cash in addition to what for what they're doing. And prices, unfortunately, there's no upper boundary for prices. We've seen most expensive things where you would pay for a single picture on Instagram. For a UK influencer having 1 million followers, you would pay £20,000 for a single picture. That's pretty crazy and expensive. But I would say the average is between 400 euros to maybe 2,000 euros for a whole collaboration, which includes usually a couple of Instagram pictures, maybe Instagram story or YouTube and so on. But bottom line is, when people start to have 50, 60,000 followers on Instagram or on any equivalent platform, then they start to charge cash. And another type of collaboration is storytelling. This is actually a pretty broad way of working together. Storytelling is something where you have an influencer, they go on travels for your airline, for your tourism board, for your hotel brand, and you send people, or you have people working for you for your car brand, for Renault, for Peugeot, for example. The lower right picture was a campaign from the car brand from Germany, Smart, and they were sending people with a bicycle actually across different cities in the world. So I think the campaign took place in Sao Paulo, in Brazil, in New York, in London, in Paris as well, and so on. And people were combining the creativity of each city with the smart and some new features and so on and so forth. So it can be a very, very creative type of collaboration. And these three examples that I've given you, photo contests, product placement, and storytelling, these are just very, very typical examples of how you can work with influencers. But to be frank, and something that is really one of the trends in influencer marketing right now, is that everything is moving from just short-sighted campaign collaborations towards long-term relationships. And when you think about long-term relationships, the idea is to really build a group of influencers together for your brand. And then this group of influencers is working with your brand on a regular basis, meaning you start with maybe 10 people, you see how it works, you work with them for 2-4 weeks, and then you look at the results. And then you look at also, how was it interacting with the influencer? Did the influencer understand what my brand is about? Was the mode of collaboration, because it's communication with the influencer. You have to be emailing and talking to these influencers. Was that actually something that was making sense and that was good? And then based on that first test for, let's say, 2 to 4 weeks, you can say, out of these 10 people, I really like working with these 7 people. And then you take these 7 people on to the next collaboration and you test 5 new ones. And this way you start building your your influencer program, your brand ambassador group. We have Misguided, they call it, as Jonas said, they call it their brand army. So you start building a group of influencers that you have a relationship with. And that's one of the key industry trends right now. So it's not about just, hey, I have 20,000 or 5,000 or 10,000 to spare on influencers and I want to spend 10,000 euros in the next 4 to 8 weeks. It's really about how to build a relationship with a group of people that you engage for the next 6 months, for the next 12 months on an ongoing basis. And the big advantage of that is that you have these ongoing relationships, and the audiences and the consumers and the followers of these influencers, they see your brand on a regular basis. They see your brand promote or whatever. They see that brand every single week on the stream, or they see the brand once or twice per month in the influencer YouTube videos or in blog articles. And because the audience see your brand in the influencer stream on a regular basis for 6 or 12 months, for a longer period of time, it appears to be way more authentic. And it's not just the influencers selling their face to a dozen of different brands. It's really about authenticity, and the followers see your brand with the influencer on a regular basis, and it starts to be a love relationship. And that's how influencer marketing really works. And it's not about just, hey, I want to spend some money here, let's do it now, and then next month we work with some others. It's always about long-term relationships nowadays. So next, I'll move on into the study. Actually, it's very special what you're seeing here, because we are having this webinar in France as the very first webinar in a series of sessions that we're having now. So you have the luxury now that you're seeing these results as one of the very first. So actually, we'll have press releases and so on going out in the next couple of days. So I'm giving you a sneak peek here. You're the very first people outside of Facelift and Brandnew and Jungformat that have been working on the study that will be seeing some of the results. So what we did, and this is really something special, because an influencer study about the industry to that extent and with that level of detail and with these data has not been there before. Nowhere in Europe and nowhere in the US. So what we did is we went to our influencer network and we asked the influencer network 20 questions. So we went to influencers and asked them 20 questions. The outcome was that 1,200 people from mainly Europe and from the US have responded to these 20 questions. And these questions were all around: how much do you charge? How often do you work with brands? How do you choose the brands that you want to work for? What would you like to improve when working with brands? What would you like to tell brands that is annoying to you? What are things that are really working well with your audiences? These are some of the questions that we've asked these influencers, and we got responses from 1,200 people. And these are not just people like you and me having maybe 400 followers and friends on Instagram. These were really top influencers, and they had on average more than 100,000 followers each. So these were really some of the top international influencers that responded to our study. And we took all this data, analyzed it, and put it into a 10, 15-page, very long study. So the study will be published as well in the next couple of days. It's available in French, in English, and in German. And it will be published on our blog, on the Brandnew blog, in the next couple of days. You'll see the link later on in the slides here. And but here I'm giving you some of the key results and the results that we saw. So out of that study, one thing is influencers become creators. So right now you're seeing this trend that there's a discussion about actually what is the term for influencers? Should we call them influencers? Should we call them creators? Should we call them bloggers, for example? I mean, that's where it all started. But actually, it's about influencing people, but it's also about what I said earlier. It's about the creative freedom. Influencers need to have a creative outlet. And 73% of the people responding to the study, so out of these 1,200 people, 73% said they would like to be more involved in the creative campaign process. So when you come up with a concept, what should the influencers do and so on, 73% they said they want to be involved in that process. They want to be part of, hey, what should we actually do, and so on. Authenticity is engaging, and they know their audiences very well. So trust them, believe them that they know what works well with their followers. And brand love is the most important factor. So here it's about the question, dear influencer, how do you choose the brand that you work with? So you get 10 brands reaching out to you per day. How do you decide with which brand you want to work with out of these 10 or even more, whatever? And the number one answer was that it's the brand that is deciding. So do I want to work with this brand? Is there a brand fit? So here you're actually sitting in the same boat as the influencer, because of course you're doing a very, very careful job in choosing the right influencer. You look at the profile, you look at all the content on the internet, on Instagram, on YouTube, on the blog about the influencer, to get a feel for, does this influencer fit to my brand? And it's very good for you to know that the influencer is actually doing exactly the same thing on his end. So when the influencer receives a message from you, the influencer thinks careful, hey, is this brand a brand that I can relate to? Is this brand something for me? And that's the most important factor when influencers decide whether they want to work with a brand. The second factor is the influencer asking themselves, when I work with this brand, which I really like, is this brand actually relevant to my followers? Do they like it? Can they relate to it as well? Is it something that they want to see? That's the second most important factor. And then only in third place comes the aspect money. How much money do I earn? So very often brands say, oh yeah, probably it's all about the money. And there are these crazy PR stories about, 100,000 for a post, etc. But that's rubbish. Influencers, they are afraid of losing their audience, and they are really careful, and a good influencer is not in it for the short run. They want to make money with their influencer, with their followers and with their accounts on a long term, and they really love what they're doing. So therefore, they are really protective about their account, their profile, and their followers. So therefore, only in third place comes the aspect, how much do I get? And lastly, one thing that is really key and that came out in this survey as well is that influencers said they are interested in long-term relationships, because that is what's going on in the industry. And influencers, they clearly understand that long-term relationships are most authentic, and that's why they're interested in that, and that works best, and that works real, and it doesn't seem like the influencers is just a shopping window of Le Galerie Lafayette. So they really want to be working with you on a long term, because that works and is really, really authentic and real. These are the results, or some of the results of the study.
It's a sneak peek, right?
It's a sneak peek.
First view for the French market, exclusive.
This is actually just a fraction of the findings that we have, and the long study, 10 to 15 pages, will be published in the next couple of days. So,
just to tell you, Francis, we had a huge amount of questions, because we had a lot of participants that have been seeing this presentation, and I think there's a huge number of interactions. But as we are running somehow out of time, we just have 3 to 4 minutes left. I'm afraid we won't have time to cover all of them. So what I propose is that we will take the time to answer each one of them via email, if it's okay for you. So please, everyone, don't hesitate. If you have additional questions, don't hesitate to send them. So you could send them, of course, to your Facelift team, your account manager, or myself. But if it's very specific regarding influencer marketing and the content of the presentation we just had, you could reach out directly to Francis at brandnew.io. So what I keep in mind looking at this overall presentation and everything that we've been working together since several years, it's clear that the influencer marketing is getting more and more professional, of course, and this at every level. Influencer identification, contact management, campaign creation, reporting, etc. So of course, it makes sense to work with professionals with the best tools and to help you to be successful in the entire influence and marketing scene. So now, for those who are actually using the Facelift Cloud to manage all their social media environment, you can now also directly activate Brandnew in your Facelift cockpit. So don't hesitate to reach out to the team so we can discuss on how you would potentially leverage Brandnew to manage your influence and marketing topics. And of course, feel free to contact us, Francis and myself, in case of any question.
Yes, that's totally right. And also I'll be in Paris on a regular basis now. So there's always a chance to speak to me directly on the phone or in person in Paris as well. So here are our email addresses. Feel free to reach out. And lastly, there on the slide, you can see our website, brandnew.io. IO is the Indian Ocean. It's sometimes a bit complicated, but yeah, that's our domain, brandnew.io. And when you go to brandnew.io/blog, that's the area where we publish the influencer studies. The very first one is there, which got published in November. It's actually also one of the unheard of studies in the industry because it's extremely large. We did the biggest big data study and analysis. So what we did is we analyzed thousands of sponsored influencer posts that went through our platform and looked at who posted that, which country, which industry, which social network, who were the audiences and followers. And we looked at how much got paid, and then we assigned this to a crazy mathematics genius and physics genius who put tons of statistical models on that, and then he analyzed all this big data to get some insights. So he found out some very interesting things like the valley of death of payout. And one of the key results was either you pay very, very little or you pay a lot, but in between there's a valley of death where it means you pay more, but actually you get less engagement. So that was an interesting data finding we saw there. So you can find the study on our blog right now. So it's there. You can just go there, brandnew.io/blog. It's the very first article where you can download the whole PDF for free and so on. And in the next couple of days, we'll also publish the other study there. So yeah, that's it. And as Didier said, when you have any questions, feel free, send me an email or Didier Francis at brandnew.io. Send me your question and we'll make sure that we get back to every single one of you in person, one by one.
Fantastic. Merci beaucoup, Francis. Magnifique.
Très bien, merci et bonne journée.
À bientôt, au revoir.